Good evening, everyone. I am Shridhar here. Thank you very much for providing a brief introduction. I am a founder and CEO of Key Sustainability Solutions Private Limited, and it's a 5-year-old company, and we are providing services to major OEMs such as Tata Motors, Mahindra & Mahindra, Ashok Leyland, Hero MotoTorch, TVS, and other tier 1 customers. So globally, we are supporting more than 100 plus customers, and across global, and we are having a head offices in Bangalore and a branch office recently we have opened in Pune location. So today we are going to talk about material compliance and sustainability. So most of you might be heard about the sustainability, but very rare cases that you might have heard about the material compliance regulations. So today we are going to learn about all those things and how exactly the automotive industry need to be engaged themselves in terms of gathering the data. Data collection has to be done from the supply chain. So localizing your automotive supply chain for the edge, call for local, right? So when we talk about local and supply chain has to be aware, understand about each and every material compliance regulation whenever their customers are asking about these scenarios. Today we are going to talk about material compliance regulation. Again, when we see in the worldwide before 20 years, there are only few regulations were there. One is ELV, that is the end of life vehicle, and another one is ROHS, restrictions of hazardous substances. The third one is again WAAA, waste of electrical and electronics equipment. Again, these are the only few regulations were there in the decade ago. But now, if you see, there are a lot of regulations are being implemented worldwide with the different reasons. So REACH, again, registration, evaluation, authorization of chemical substances, is applicable to again European Union. So major regulation which you are seeing here is majorly applicable to European Union. So most of the overseas OEMs are already asking their supply chain to provide these regulations. SCIP database is again another important regulation which has been implemented in 2021. Which is called as a substance of concern in products. So today we are going to talk about material which are present in the product, and that particular product, if you are manufacturing, if they have any hazardous substances. So these all regulation which you are seeing here, these are all regulations are having the different basic substances which we call it as chemicals, which are good chemicals as well as bad chemicals. When you have a bad chemicals, what need to be done? So how much percentage of hazardous substances is being allowed to use utilized in your particular product? So there are in automotive industry, when you talk about ELV, there are four substances are there and their compounds. When we say that, it is going to be around 400 substances. When we say REACH is having around 253 substances. When they add their compounds also, then it is going to be more than 1,000 substances. Likewise, you will be having more than around 7,000 to 8,000 substances worldwide. Where it is going to be understand whenever you are using any particular substances in your material when you are producing the product. So these are the regulations. For European Union, we have IMDS, RRR, recyclability and recoverability as per ISO 22628, CDX system, REACH, CLP, classification, labeling and packaging, SCIP, substance of concern in product, ROHS, restrictions of hazardous substances, BPR, again, biocidal product regulation, POPs, you might have heard about the POPs, persistent organic pollutants. So, conflict mineral and extended mineral, then again, it is not a hazardous substances, conflict mineral and extended minerals, which is nothing but about the trade, like in case if you are mining from the DRC, Democratic Republic of Congo, if you are taking from that particular region, then the active and confront smelters only you have to take. You should not buy from the non-confront or the non-active smelter list. So a lot of restrictions are there with respect to Europe, USA, APAC region, and then global. When you see that life cycle assessment, probably how many of you are aware about the life cycle assessment? Again, it is in line with ISO 14040 and 14044. It's related to the CO2 emission identification for the product which you are manufacturing from the cradle to grave scenario or cradle to gate scenario. We are going to see one particular slide which we talk about the CBAM, carbon border adjustment mechanism. So different countries have implemented different regulations again to tackle the chemicals which they are importing into the regions. So these are the few tools are there where for automotive industry, IMDS and CDX system is the major tool where it is absolutely free for the automotive industry, where all the OEMs are asking to provide the data through that particular system. So we are authorized consulting and training partners for the IMDS. So product compliance, each product level regulatory compliance need to be defined, chemical threshold at the product level for all the regulations which we talked about, supply chain involvement. So the last point which we talk about, supply chain involvement, right? So without supplier involvement, the OEM cannot produce a greener product. So supply chain involvement should be there, and the transparency. If supply chain is not providing a transparency information to the customers, then there is a lot of issues will be happening with the customer point of view. So chemical compliance, we should know about which chemical you are using with respect to by weight or weight by weight. In case if any hazardous substances are there, then there are some regulations going to talk about the restrictions of the hazardous substances with respect to the percentage by percentage. Company product and user-defined regulatory updates need to be defined for each and every compliance regulations whenever you are producing any particular product. And focus on supplier and customer collaboration. So this is very, very important. Most of the OEMs are asking the information, but they don't know how exactly they have to get the information from the supply chain. So this is where the OEM has to focus on the supply chain to get the right data from for their product which they are receiving from the supplier. So this is called as an AIS 129 Automotive Industry Standard, which is applicable to majorly automotive industry. This regulation is drafted in India, which is similar to European Union ELV, end of life vehicle. This has two parts. One is part 1 and part 2. Part 1 is already been implemented, collection and dismantling of ELVs. As we are already aware about the RVSF, where the public sector vehicles are being, after 15 years, they should not be on the roadside. It has to be scrapped, and the scrapped material are going to be reutilized or reused. The part 2 and part 2A and part 2B are restrictions of heavy metal, which we are talking about, that hazardous substances. Part 2B again talk about the type approval for the RRR calculation, where any vehicle manufacturer, they have to achieve 80% and 85% of recyclability and recoverability. There is a formula according to the ISO 22628. They have to calculate it, and they have to showcase before launching to the market, to the government. So then only they can able to launch their vehicle. And after 15 years, that has to be tallied when the vehicle is going to be dismantled. So there is a stricter rules are going to be implemented, but these two part 2 are not being implemented, but it's been already drafted, and it has been applicable to all the categories of vehicle, which is again M, N and L category. When I say M, M1, M2, M3, N, N1, N2, N3, L, L1, L2, L3. All the three categories of vehicles are being applicable for this particular AIS 129. Okay, when we talk about sustainability, again, sustainability, as you know, that it's a vast subject where with regards to the net zero, to the carbon decarbonization, to the carbon credit, right? So when we talk about Atmanirbhar circularity, India's automotive circular economy, which we will talk about the material innovation, recycling ecosystem, and the policy pathway. So these are the major three ways the Atmanirbhar circularity can be looked into. Localization of a green material, as we always produce a particular product with the greener material. When we say the greener material, it should not be green in color, but it should be produced by using the renewable sources. Secondary is steel and aluminium. As we know that aluminium, if you are using virgin material, then it is going to consume more CO2 to produce one particular product. If you use a secondary material, then the CO2 is going to be reduced. Design for disassembly, where the OEMs has to design any particular product easily disassemble, so that the scrappage or the treatment facility manufacturer can easily remove those particular product and part and then disassemble it easily. Recycling ecosystem, again formalizing the informal sectors, as we know that Mayapuri is one of the famous area where you will be getting a lot of used products or the products which are being dismantled in a unauthorized way. So we need to stop that and make sure that the informal sectors could be formalized. Reverse logic changes the ecosystem of transporting across vast India states to centralized recycling hubs. Closed loop plastics, we are implementing the technology needed to transform old bumpers and dashboards back into the automotive grade resins. A policy pathway where the government has taken a stricter policies with respect to the ERP, extended producer responsibility, for the steel, aluminum, and plastic and battery recycling for the APR. AIS 129 is going to be implemented very soon. And digitalization, where using the 1.4 database and digital product passport to track the vehicle's life from cradle to cradle. So when we talk about cradle to cradle, from birth to again rebirth. So linear to circular, the future of automotive design. Instead of traditional take, make, and dispose, we have to move towards closed loop automotive ecosystem, where the circular economy we can talk about it. Manufacturer must support circular design by reducing footprint during the production. End of life vehicle should become an input for the new vehicle. So these are the few elements where it is required from linear to circular economy. Moving towards why sustainability? Again, a strong ESG is must, because investors, consumers, regulators, and civil societies are more inclined towards sustainability. Like when we talk about net zero, if I talk about Apple, when they say that 2030 they want to become a net zero, it is not that the Apple is only targeting that 2030. They have to take the supply chain as well. So the investors are also going to look into how much environment is going to be polluted in case if we are producing any particular product. So multiple of top CEOs of they are looking into the ESG performance versus industry average consistency. 90% of consumers are looking for the greener materials, and the regulatories by most of the industries are given a target of 2050 that they want to become a net zero by 2050. And India, as you know, that like 2070 they have given that India want to become a 2070 by the net zero. So the civil society, like 88% of people in US and UK want compliance to help them more ethical and environmental friendly. So these are the driving, these are the pressures from the stakeholders where it is being pushing strong towards the ESG compliance. So 99% of the CEO believes that sustainability is important for the future success, and 88% of the CEOs believes that ecosystem needs to refocus on fair growth. 82% of the CEOs own themselves accountable to leave a sustainable mark as part of their mandate. So if you see, nearly all the large companies are now publishing their results in the periodical sustainability reports. So every industry, they have to give a report year on year for the sustainability reporting, how much they are achieving and how much they are reducing and what is the target to reduce the CO2s. The drivers for the ESG acceleration is regulators, investors, corporations, and standard setters, where most of the regulators like SEC proposed disclosure rules climate change in March 2022. SEC released a proposal to regulate the names of ESG investment funds. CSRD is one more, where the European Union wanted to release the reports according to the CSRD report. And in India, we are having a BRS report. In Australia, we are having a ASRS report. So that is the mandatory for the 1,000+ companies, where they have to report it annually. So that they have to calculate, they have to take the data collection activity they have to do, and on the actual data which they are spending, they have to create that and they have to provide the reports accordingly. So these are the drivers for ESG acceleration. These are the few informations which we have collected through their company website and their sustainability report. If you see major automotive industry we have taken here, with BMW, their target like net zero ambition is by 2050, 2040 by GM, and then Volkswagen is 2050, again Ford is 2050, 2039 is a Daimler, Volvo is a 2040. And if you talk about scope 1, scope 2 and scope 3, as we all know, the scope 1, scope 2 lies between the companies only. But scope 3 lies with respect to the supply chain. So scope 3 is the 50% per kilometers by 2030, which is being given by the BMW. And as Daimler, if you see CO2 neutral by 2039. When they say that CO2 neutral by 2039, the supply chain is also going to be neutral by 2039. So they have to take all the supply chain along with them to become a 2039 neutral. So major OEMs have target for scope 1, scope 2 carbon neutrality by 2050. And if they want to drive and take supply chain along with that, then they have to make a stricter rules where the downstream and upstream regulation scope will be utilized in such a way that it is going to be reduced in a stipulated timeline. And supply requirement, as we know that intended to use 100% green energy, 100% green energy for a new efforts, and request a science-based target for GHG emissions. So these are all the few elements which they are asking supply chain to look after it. So again, it's a new topic for most of you people. Probably in case if you are exporting already to the European Union, it is a world topic, but it's a CBAM carbon border mechanism where it is going to be calculate the carbon tax. EU producer or the importer's duty is to collect the carbon certificate for the production if they are doing for the aluminium, steel, cement, fertilizer, electricity, hydrogen. So these are the 6 grades. In case if you are producing and exporting to European Union, you have to calculate the CBAM, and there is one particular template, that is Excel file, you have to provide to your customers. Then they are going to get the carbon certificate for the product which you are exporting to the European Union. What is the aim of the CBAM? To prevent carbon leakage, to ensure effectiveness of EU climate policy, complement and enforcement of EU ETS, contribute to the decarbonization globally and to reach climate neutrality by 2050. So it's a target of European Union. Towards that, by 2050 they want to be neutral. So whatever the import they are doing it, because most of the manufacturing is happening outside the EU, and when they import it, they become a neutral itself. But it is produced outside and importing, so it make to a fair game. They have implemented this CBAM, and it's a mandatory by any manufacturer, and it's applicable to simple goods, not for the complex goods again. It's applicable to only a simple goods. In case if you are nut, bolt, latches, simple goods if you are exporting, then it is majorly applicable. In case if you are manufacturing steel, aluminium and iron products, and also cement. So this is boundary and linkage for the CBAM. Again, if you see upstream process and production of a precursor and production of a process are majorly implemented. Cradle to gate scenario is only applicable for the CBAM, not for the cradle to gate scenario, because it is very difficult to calculate the other information. So they are limiting to cradle to gate scenario. By 2040, they want to make it as zero, means 100% they want to apply the carbon credit. The trading is going to happen for the carbon by the European Union. So this year they are going to, in case if you are producing 100 tons of CO2, then it is going to be 2.5% of that 100 ton you have to pay for the carbon taxes. And then it is going to be year on year, it is going to increase, and it makes 100% that you have to pay, so that you are going to reduce the CO2 whenever you are producing it. So simultaneously they are tackling it. So CBAM focuses on emission from the production of a precursor and the production of a process. CBAM applicable to calculate the embedded emissions only. Embedded emissions are total GHG emissions that occur during the production of goods. It includes direct emission, indirect emission, and precursor emissions. So the emission under CBAM scope, where each CBAM scope is highlighted with the blue color, where scope 1 is completely applicable. Scope 3 is a partially that input material under the CBAM scope is applicable, where the grade out is not applicable, where the scope 3 indirect consumption of transportation distribution, that is what the cradle to grave scenario we are talking about. But certain part of scope 2 is been applicable, which electricity consumed the production of the CBAM goods. So this is the scope where the scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 is been applicable for the CBAM. And these are the six elements where the iron, steel, electricity, fertilizer, cement, chemicals, and aluminium. In case if you are producing a simple goods, then CBAM is applicable. In case if you are exporting to European Union. So key updates. Earlier it was transition period where it is applicable to, even though if you are exporting more than 150 euros of tonnage consignment, then it was applicable. Now it is a 50 tonnage. In case if you are exporting 50 tonnage per consignment, then it is not applicable. In case if it is crossed more than 50 tonnage per consignment, then the CBAM is going to be applicable. Even though it's a simple goods, if you are exporting more than 50 tons per consignment. So it's going to be applicable from 1st January 2026. The new rule is going to be applicable. Earlier it was quarterly report has to be created, but now it is going to be a yearly report has to be provided. So omnibus is going to be applicable for this particular transition. So all about key sustainability, where we are regulation experts and sustainability expert, where we are providing all these regulation support, as well as providing training, end-to-end consulting, testing, verification by the third party. We are not doing any testing. And also, we are a global partnership with AIG, DXC, iPoint, some of the Griffith University in Australia, IIMB from Bangalore. And the other side, if you see, there are two ecosystems which we have developed. These are the two systems we have developed for the ESG and as well as for the CBAM. It's an in-house developed tool which will be helpful for any industries in case if they want to calculate ESG as well as CBAM. Thank you very much for providing an opportunity.
What is the current readiness of Indian industry regarding this
CBAM, again, whoever exporting to European Union, they are already providing the information to the overseas OEMs. But as such, in India, there is one more carbon taxation is going to be applicable. But by 2027, it's going to be implemented. So that time it is similar to what the European Union is going to happen. The same CBAM is going to be applicable, but it's going to be called in a different terminology.
that will be applicable for Indian?
For Indian, in case if you are importing any goods from other than India, then it is going to be applicable. Thank you. Thank you.